deconstructing divorce when it comes to your wallet, because it's something you need to think about.
Yeah.
It's one of the big considerations.
Your wallet will notice this is happening.
It might.
Yeah.
Yeah, it might take note. You've talked a lot about the cost to consider, and there are a lot of them.
Yeah.
Real estate, RRSPs. Let's talk a little bit about fairness, because I think it's such an emotional journey and money is an emotional thing.
Yeah.
So how do you figure out what is fair?
It is an extraordinarily difficult perspective question. There is the head and the heart.
Yes.
So on the head side, there are guidelines, there's precedents, there's ways of formulas and experience and all that kind of stuff. On the hard front, and this is where it becomes quite problematic, is what are the circumstances of the divorce? Is this two people who are saying, listen, we're done, move on? Or is this a couple that has been hit by some sort of a trauma, an infidelity, a job loss, an addiction, or something like that, in which one party or the other might feel hard done by and want to take the other person for all they're worth? That kind of dynamic. So fair is a very challenging perspective. Another possible perspective or paradigm is what works. What's going to work here?
Right.
What's going to work for the well-being of the two people in the couple? What's going to work for the kids?
Yeah.
And maybe that's a way to sort through that, because there's so much weaponry involved in the dissolution of a marriage.
That's right. It can get low, and you don't want to have to live through something like that.
Yeah.
Right? Let's talk about the logistics, because there are a lot of things you're going to have to check off your list when you are parting ways.
And there are some simple things like closing a joint bank account, closing a joint credit card. So if that was the way you manage your finances, you're going to need to sort out a different way to manage your finances. Updating beneficiaries, CPP, RSPs, life insurance policies, all those sorts of things.
Yeah.
And last, inform CRA. And you have an obligation to inform the CRA of a change in your marital status, because there's going to be tax implications. Now, the other thing that we haven't talked about is many families have kids. And so there's a whole bunch of other things that are going to go alongside that, like who pays for soccer, who pays for gymnastics, and much of that will be outlined in child support. So there'll be the ongoing child support, and then there'll be special expenses, piano lessons, that kind of thing, that will be included in that, ideally included in that separation agreement, to minimize the amount of back and forth, and you said, yeah, buts.
Okay. Now, so you basically have to figure out a new way of budgeting your life as well.
Yes.
Because one thing about marriage is that if there's two people, you might have two sources of income, you may not, but it's a whole different world now.
It's a whole different world.
If you're going to go it alone.
So you need to think about what your cash flow looks like. You have income and you have expenses, like everybody does, but yours have changed perhaps substantially. So look at what those numbers are and look at what changes you will need to make. In all likelihood, there are some sacrifices that you're going to have to make, and some of them might be quite dramatic. So you need to, for the first time in your life, need to live on a budget. The other thing to remember is, in most couples, not all, but in most couples, one person takes the lead. So there is one person in that marriage who takes the lead on organizing, the expenses and the taxes and the retirement savings and all that. If you're now alone, you may need to learn those skills, and the partner that you're no longer married to will take those skills with them and not be maybe not engaged in that part of your life. So you need to amp it up, learn some skills, get some more support, and do those kinds of things. The one last and critical point as you think about your budget is to think about some self-care things, because it's one thing to say, I have no money, like we're barely able to pay the rent, but I strongly encourage people to find a little bit of something so that you can hire a babysitter, so you can go for a girls' night out or a boys' night out, so you can have a therapist, so you can go for a massage, something, because this potentially for years is going to be really weighing on your shoulders as an individual.
Really good advice. I'm happy you included self-care.
Self-care is important.
That is so important.